Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yaron Velner. I'm here to speak about DeFi risk management. So DeFi risk management is a very broad topic in this talk, and this is also most of our activity. It's about the economic risk of things, where most of the risk activities we see are focused mostly around smart contract bugs and hacks. However, as DeFi products and protocols are becoming more and more complex, there are also a lot of economic risk factors that come into place. In this talk, I will mostly focus on lending markets, where in lending markets, the main risk factor to determine is the so-called loan-to-value ratio, which basically means how much, for example, US dollar you can borrow against, for example, a Bitcoin collateral or ETH collateral. And this is a key metric in DeFi lending markets because it affects both the security and solvency of the protocol, but also has great impact on the user experience. Some background on myself. So I'm the founder of B.Protocol, which is a DeFi protocol that is live for almost 3 years and aims to mitigate risks in lending market. I'm also a lead contributor to RiskDAO, which provides risk analysis services to different platforms. Previously, I was CTO of Kyber Network, a Singaporean-based decentralized exchanges where we built a wrapped Bitcoin. My history with blockchain started already in 2016 after completing my PhD in computer science. I was building, along with other co-founders, the first Ethereum decentralized mining pool, back when Ethereum was still a proof-of-work thing. My background is technical. I hold PhD in computer science and has a lot of technical development experience. So yeah, when we want to mitigate the risk factor, so it's kind of appropriate to say what it is we are working on the last year or two. So recently, especially in the last year, we're giving a lot of services, risk mitigation services to a bunch of DeFi protocol. So this kind of aspiration to mitigate the human factor is also kind of to replace ourselves with some sort of a more decentralized, but even more, like a smart contract way of things. And risk management has, kind of notorious history, beginning with traditional finance. Some hold it responsible to the 2008 credit crisis. It is very biased, opaque, political. In traditional risk management, it's mostly about rating the debt and the quality of the debt of companies or sovereign nations. It's notoriously, biased toward US debt, for example. And it was one of the kind of main reason actually to why Bitcoin, came to life as a kind of an anti-movement to the 2008 credit crisis. But then, crypto came, but risk management is still managed also in crypto by humans. And we also, what happened with 3 Arrow Capital going insolvent because some of the creditors decided to pause liquidation because they thought, it might be the best kind of commercial or even trading decision to do. But it resulted, like in complete bankruptcy. FTX were posing, liquidations to Alameda, which was, of course, like a total fraud, not only bad risk management, but eventually when you have humans, having kind of this power to manage these things, this is where you end up with. So so it's not only in traditional finance, we see it a lot in crypto, but then of course, in DeFi, this would never happen, right? Because DeFi is all about transparency. So DeFi lending markets are very transparent. They are very decentralized, but it doesn't mean they are not political and not sort of biased toward human decision. And one example here is that, so many of these lending markets have kind of their own third-party risk vendor that kind of recommend risk management activities. And we saw, this is only like 5 months ago, the risk vendor recommended to freeze liquidations because of certain market conditions, knowing it could result in some bad debt, also in other markets. And like here, kind of the complaint is neither for the lending market nor for the risk vendor, which, like very professional and smart entity. But it is, one way sort of closer to, freezing liquidation. This is what, how FTX end up with. A more recent case, I don't know how many guys here are kind of following what is actually happening, in DeFi. That was like very hot topic, where Curve founder actually took a huge debt position in Aave against its own native token. And here Gantland, which are the risk vendor, had like one position of, what should be done. Here I'm bringing Max Zeller, but it's kind of representative of the Aave DAO community, had a different position. Both positions, there's no like actual right and wrong here, right? Both positions are super professional, super kind of honest, and then also in the middle, you had like the actual user who was using a DeFi platform, and now there was a proposal to kind of change the rules in order to, kind of handle his specific situation. So again, there's not necessarily right and wrong here. It's just not what you expect, from a DeFi protocol. It's not like how, I don't know, Uniswap, would behave. More generally, and kind of coming from the trenches and managing, risk for over 2 years in DeFi protocols. So when you decide on, like on this loan-to-value ratio, you have in mind a lot of quantitative and measurable metrics, but you also have a lot of, kind of domain-specific knowledge. For example, assets like USDT, are like kind of objectively very stable over the past years. But, it is sort of valid to have maybe some, I don't know, biased opinion against them because of their structure. But it becomes, like even worse when you start to potentially also analyze, like the users you operate with. For example, it's not maybe uncommon to analyze like the user activity, and then maybe you can decide that, okay, if the user operated mostly in Asia, working hours, he is based maybe in a certain area. Based on that, maybe we want to give him, like a worse or maybe better, risk score. So all these things, are kind of very common, like in traditional finance, but it's not something you would expect from a, non-bias and objective DeFi protocol. So yeah, so in B.Protocol and also the risk DAO, our vision, and how can it be done differently? So we aim to replace all these risk vendors, including ourselves, with a smart contract. Now this smart contract will get quantitative data such as DEX liquidity, asset volatility, etc. as input. We're actually even bringing this data on-chain is not trivial, and this is a big part of what we do. And then to take into account, because like the vision is that eventually everything is fully automated, fully objective, no human input. But like to be realistic in the short term, we have to give some room into some human input. So here, like every entity could specify some confidence factor. So if you have less confidence in USDT than USDC, you are also free to kind of specify that. And more broadly, maybe a DAO can specify it. So we do give some room, to human input. But this is like a single number input, which makes everything super transparent. Users can compare and understand, the different risk and confidence factors that different protocols take. Now, given this input, the smart contract will just output, the recommended loan-to-value ratio, also other parameters, potentially interest rate, supply and borrow cap, etc. This is based on a mathematical formula we developed. So this formula has, kind of a lot of input. This is not really the place to kind of expand on that. But the thing is that like all the inputs here, are kind of available to fetch from the blockchain, not necessarily from a smart contract, but are available to objectively, read from the smart contract via events or other means. And it has one additional, but only one parameter, which is totally subjective. And then given this subjective parameter, we can also, kind of compare the risk of different platforms. So this is what we did, and where and how this thing could be used. So right now, DAOs, lending markets spend a lot of money, effort, but also time on discussions, and DAO discussions on, deciding what is the loan-to-value ratio and everything. So, like, the vision is to make this process fully automated, but even for the medium term, the DAO could provide some templates, like on his vision and his confidence factor for these things, and then we will not end up, as like with debates and discussion. And typically the debate and the conflicts typically happen, and they are very time critical. They happen in a scenario where it's kind of the worst time to discuss these things because it's under a lot of pressure, and you don't want to look like political, but you also want to save your protocol. So now the DAO can kind of decide on it beforehand, and the actual decisions will be taken by a smart contract without any political bias. Also, listing assets is a very important role of lending markets. So here, like given these objective criteria, a DAO could be more automatically be able to list assets, looking at this risk oracle that will provide, like the quantitative data on the different assets. And to put it in a bigger scope, right now risk management is very political process. It comes with a lot of manual operations, and actually manual operations were known to have also bugs, like configuration bugs, because you wanted to set one loan-to-value ratio. You forgot to add few zeros there, and users got liquidated for no good reason, and actually lost money. It's very governance-heavy, both on kind of human emotion, and it's also very hard to get like human or like to get like traction to community discussions. But also it actually takes time, and every kind of decision you want to make could very easily take like a month, And finally, it's opaque. Right now, it's mostly dictated by risk vendors who use closed source models and then just come to the DAO and say, look, this is our recommendation. And they can vaguely explain, how they came to it, but like there's no real way like to fully understand it. With our approach, things become more neutral. Smart contract makes the decision. It's fully automated, so it's also save a lot of effort and also resources. And of course, it is transparent and decentralized, as DeFi is supposed to be. So if you want to learn more, we don't have time for a question, but either catch me off stage, and you can follow us on Twitter, reach me out on Telegram. We have a website for B.Protocol and for RiskDAO. And thank you very much.